Selected parts from the book My Life Story, written by Shri KJS Dhillon. Part 9. I was posted in Mahau as a captain. I was awaiting orders for my next posting, which had been somewhat delayed. However, I was constructively utilizing the God given extended tenure at Mahou to prepare for my Defense Services Staff College entrance examination scheduled to be held in September that year. My wife was at her parents' home. We were expecting the birth of our first child. After endless waiting at STD phone booth and inquiring about the situation with my father-in-law for continuously 2 days, I got the news of the arrival of our son and of the mother and baby doing fine one day late in the afternoon. I managed to reach home only on the 11th day after my son's birth. In my case, duty almost made me miss my own wedding and accounted for my absence at the birth of our first child. Destiny, in fact, continued to test my resilience as I could not attend the birth of our second child either. I was posted in the Manipur and Nagaland region at the time, which was a non family posting. Our daughter's birth also coincided with our unit's move from the northeast to Kashmir. Personal challenges in the life of a soldier and his family seldom get known to the outside world. The sacrifices made by army officers and soldiers while dealing with the enemy on the border or terrorists in a counterinsurgency operation are obvious to everyone, but the silent sacrifices made by their wives and families largely remain undocumented, unseen, and therefore unrewarded. I have the utmost respect for these unsung heroes and heroines in the army fraternity who often fight their battles alone behind the scenes and hold the domestic fort while their male counterparts perform their duty outside the home. I experienced this firsthand. The last month of my wife's second pregnancy coincided with the rising intensity of terrorist activities in the Kashmir Valley, where terrorists' incursions against the security forces, including suicide attacks by the terrorists, were taking place at an increasing frequency. I was posted in a Rashtriya Rifles unit which was involved in highly intense anti terrorist operations in Lolab Valley near Kupwara in northwest Kashmir. The modus operandi of a Fidian terrorist was to enter a post manned by security forces laden with explosives and target as many security personnel as possible to cause maximum damage and casualties before getting killed. My unit had moved into the Lolab Valley only a day earlier, and my company was deployed at an isolated post hugging the mountain ranges where the nearest reinforcement or any assistance would take anything up to 45 minutes to reach even by a vehicle. Mine was B Company, which was referred to as Bajrangbali Company, and accordingly, we had placed Lord Hanumanji's idol in our company mandir in a small structure located right in the middle of the post premises. Lord Hanumanji's idol, made of Ashtadhatu, that is, an extremely pure octo-alloy consisting of 8 metals in equal proportion, was specially ordered from Jaipur. The particular post where I was the Rashtriya Rifles Company commander came under an attempted Fithian attack on the night of my daughter's birth. The terrorists tried to storm into my company post in a Fithian manner. I was a senior major at that time and was standing in the middle of the company post next to the company mandir while controlling the operation. An intense firefight was going on when suddenly my commanding officer called on the radio set to inquire about the situation. While I was talking to him, I saw a rocket headed in my direction. I inadvertently shouted something that naturally upset my commanding officer. The rocket landed very close to me and got embedded in the ground but did not explode. The next day, when the commanding officer visited my post along with the commander, he told me what I had shouted on the radio set the previous night. I had no clue of what I had uttered, but the unexploded rocket, still embedded in the ground next to the mandir, was telling the story loud and clear. Notwithstanding, Punjabi is a very beautiful language otherwise. We neutralized the attack without suffering any casualties on our side and blocked the entry of all terrorists into our post. I would credit this turn of events to the blessings of Lord Hanumanji and the lady luck personified by our baby daughter, though I was not yet aware of her arrival into our world. After another 4 days, when I was engaged in a fierce counter terrorist operation in the jungles, my CO received the good news of our daughter's birth but did not relay this to me. Instead, he ordered me and all the officers involved in that operation to return to my company post after the operation. We had already been engaged in operations for almost 3 days, and we perceived this message to be the harbinger of news of another impending large scale operation. However, when we returned to the post, we were met by the CO who had personally come down to the post along with the entire entourage of officers in the headquarters to break the news of my daughter's birth to me. All the unit officers joined me and we had a small but roaring party to celebrate the arrival of my second born. I myself could, however, visit Kupwara to make the STD call and talk to my wife and wish her only 18 days later. The physical meeting was delayed for a good 2 months after our daughter was born. That was when I could proceed home on leave and actually see my daughter. My first encounter with my daughter was, however, rather uncongenial as she was used to the soft and gentle voices of her mother and maternal grandparents. But the minute I entered the house and started talking to everyone in my loud army baritone, she got ruffled and howled endlessly for a long time. She took some time to overcome her fear of my voice, and she would start crying even if she heard the sound of my footsteps. I don't know whether I was naive or not, but it is a unique challenge that I faced, and I am sure many fellow army men too went through this. Notwithstanding my absence, my father in law, Sardar Atma Singh Bajwa, a retired police officer and an athlete par excellence during his younger days, held the fort at home in spite of his own eyes having been operated at the time of the delivery of my daughter. His sheer presence in the house boosted the morale of my wife whenever she felt low. The wives and families of soldiers are the epitomes of courage and sacrifice, standing behind their husbands, sons, and brothers through every difficult situation, though their invaluable contribution to the careers of the men is seldom acknowledged, leave aside, appreciated, or celebrated. An army wife's life and what they have to endure never makes headlines, but it is always the heartbeat of the main story. My life story, too, has been peppered with similar instances of sacrifice and valor exhibited by my wife, who underwent severe trauma on at least two occasions when she heard of my purported death, or rather news of my death, in the media. The first such incident occurred when I was posted as a major in Rashtriya Rifles in Kashmir and engaged in anti terrorist operations in the Lolab Valley, and my wife was in her eighth month of pregnancy, expecting our second child. The army had tragically lost a daredevil officer in one of the operations who shared the same designation and a name very similar to mine, Major K.G. Singh, as opposed to my name K.J. Singh, and who also happened to be posted in Lolab in the neighboring Rashtriya Rifle Battalion. When his death was announced in a television news bulletin, his name was mispronounced as KJ Singh, with the ticker in the news telecast carrying the scroll. Major KJ Singh of Rashtriya Rifles killed in Lolab. My wife not only heard this news on TV but also read it in the next morning's newspaper. Shocked and devastated, she had no reason to doubt that the news pertained to me, as three of the key details were identical to my credentials: the name of the officer, the unit, Rashtriya Rifles, and the location, Lola Valley. Recovering from the initial shock, she decided to shield her aging parents from grief as far as possible and attempted to conceal the newspaper from them. However, by this time, the Subedar major in my unit, Sube Singh, had learned of this misidentification, and realizing the grim implications of the news for my pregnant wife, he urged me to call and inform her that I was fine. But that was easier said than done, considering that it was an era predating mobile phones with a lack of any form of instant communication. In fact, we did not even have any access to a civil landline phone at our location, and I had to contact one of my counterparts in Kupwara requesting him to convey to my wife that I was okay and that the news did not pertain to me. After experiencing several hours of mental torment in the belief that I was the casualty being referred to in the media, Neeta eventually received the heartening news that I was alive and well. Yet, the tremendous relief she felt when the false news was refuted was tempered by an immense sadness emanating from the realization that she may have escaped the blow of destiny, but in her place, and their wife and another family would be grieving the loss of their husband, son, and father. At the time, one of my maternal uncles serving in the border security force was posted in South Kashmir. When he read the news, he immediately checked its veracity with the Corps headquarters in Srinagar, where he too was told that Major KJ Singh of the Rashtriya Rifles had been killed in Dolab. But on checking further, he subsequently found out that the officer who made the supreme sacrifice was actually from the Gorkha Rifles and not from Rajputana Rifles. He also communicated to my wife that, contrary to the announcement, I was alive and unharmed. In retrospect, however, it was obvious that such multiple communications from different channels can actually confound the confusion, causing more anxiety rather than relief. The second incident related to my death occurred when I was the CO of my battalion in South Kashmir in an intensely terrorist infested area called Tral. Late on the evening of 18th August 2002, my brigade commander called advising me to speak to my wife, who was at that time staying at the permanent base of the battalion in Uttarakhand. In this case, too, a ticker displayed during the television news bulletin averred that Colonel KJ Singh had been killed in Jammu and Kashmir. However, this time the reference was to a namesake of mine, Colonel Converse Jaideep Singh Salaria, Shauri Chakra, Sena Medal, commanding officer of 6 Dogra, a great soldier who had made the supreme sacrifice in the Nowshera sector while fighting with the terrorists, whereas I was in Tral in South Kashmir. Again, the STD lines at our post played truant, and I could not get in touch with Nita to assure her of the TV news being untrue about me. Hence, I requested the commanding officer of the neighboring unit to urge his wife, who was also staying in the battalion base at Uttarakhand, to inform my wife about my well being. Since it was quite late at night, at least by army standards, he suggested that his wife would speak to Nita only the next morning rather than disturbing her at night. With the experience of the previous similar incident and knowing the distress that she would be going through on hearing this piece of news, I was determined to somehow inform her about my welfare immediately rather than let her suffer through the night. So I called upon the army line one of my dear friends, Lieutenant Colonel Anil Chaudhary, who posted in the army headquarters in Delhi, requesting him to talk to Nita, but he too suggested that she should not be disturbed at night. Restless and desperate to dispel the misperception about the mistaken identity, I did not give up trying to somehow get the news of my safety across to my wife. Hence, I called my maternal uncle on the army line, who at the time was posted at the BSF headquarters in Jalandhar, to help out by ringing up Nita on my behalf, but he too advised me to be patient and not rattle her at night. By this time, it was well past midnight and facing a roadblock with all my three contacts. I thought it was best to let matters lie and convey the news to my wife only at daybreak or as and when our STD lines were restored. However, as luck would have it, though all three of my contacts had discouraged me from trying to get in touch with my wife late at night, each of them had had second thoughts, and eventually all three of them ended up calling her during the night itself. Neeta had, however, already seen the ticker on the TV news just as she was about to retire for the night and once again went through an intensely torturous experience. The first thoughts flitting through her mind painted a desolate and insecure future where she would have to bring up her two little kids and manage the house without the support of her husband. However, once again she rose to the occasion, refusing to give in to emotion or break down and trying to rationalize her thoughts on how to handle the crisis. It was then that the phone rang. It was the wife of the CO of my neighboring unit. Her short and sharp message was, Nita, don't worry, KJ is okay. After which she disconnected the call. But my wife did not believe her and thought that she had called only to help her tide through the night. Then Lieutenant Colonel Anil Chaudhary and his wife called and they too said exactly the same thing and hung up. My wife was justifiably suspicious, not ready to accept that I was fine on the basis of those two brief and unusual calls, especially since one of them was from an officer posted in Delhi who was not expected to be in the know about what was happening in my unit in Kashmir, especially after office hours. To complicate matters further, my uncle too called around the same time, and his message was as cryptic as those of the other two callers. Don't worry, he is fine. By this time, Nita was in complete mental turmoil, and instead of being relieved at the good news, she was convinced that the multiple calls had been made only to soften the blow as something was deeply amiss. She spent the entire night sitting up in bed next to the sleeping children, charting out a roadmap for navigating an uncertain future devoid of a secure livelihood and two kids in tow. But even in her hour of personal anguish and agony, she was determined to downplay her emotions and keep her chin up for the sake of the wives of JCOs and Jawans in the unit's base location, whose husbands were also involved in similar operations and situations. The ordeal for her ended only at about 5 am when the STD lines of my unit were restored and I was able to call her myself. At first, she was absolutely incredulous on hearing my voice, and then all her controlled emotions were let loose, unleashing a volley of tears. My father and uncle, who were visiting her and were staying in another room, in the same house heard the uncontrollable sobbing, and since they had also heard the phone ringing a number of times at night, came to her room to investigate. When they learned about the whole sequence of events, they too went through the same array of emotions as Nita, admonishing her for not sharing her feelings with them while trying to handle the situation alone. Thanks for listening.